Finally, we have arrived at the last future redeemed character. This time we have Nikol, the face tank of the group. For me, Nikol was somewhat unimpressive most of the game, and even now I think he struggles to gain and maintain aggro properly, even if you try to lean into that aspect heavily. So what I decided to do instead is build him as an unkillable last line of defense type of character. I've found more success this way personally, rather than trying to make him an offensive aggro keeper, since the only times he could get aggro is basically when everyone else died for me. Unfortunate, but it ends up working anyway because of how stacked the future redeemed party is. In this video, I want to discuss Nikol, talk about his strengths and weaknesses, and discuss how I believe to use him most effectively. If you enjoyed my guide content for Future Redeemed and want to see more on this and the rest of the Xenoblade series, please be sure to subscribe to the channel because it does really help me out so much. Let's get into it. So once again, you want to max out your weapon and get as much stats as possible on them. For Nikol, this doesn't matter as much, for the way I build him at least, for attack and critical rate, although attack can be useful depending on how you choose to build him if you want to make him more offensive. But you do get a big block rate boost, which can be really beneficial to Nikol because he is one of the characters that benefits a lot from taking as little damage as possible. So let's take a look at his actual skills now. We have Safe and Sound. This reduces damage taken by allies in a fixed radius by 30%. This is a pretty good party support effect. Even if he doesn't have aggro, as long as he is close to his allies, it can reduce the amount of damage they take, meaning he can still contribute pretty meaningfully to the team no matter what. And because of that, I do think he can function as an effective party member, even if he is not going to be the primary aggro gainer in most of these scenarios when you're in these fights. This is still a really solid skill, really good for party support. I'm a big fan of this skill. Block Counter Assembly. When blocking, deals 200% of attack damage to enemy, drawing aggro. This is just spike damage based on total attack. That would be exactly 1600 here, which is not really that much, especially because some of the damage from your attackers is going to easily dwarf that in just a number of hits. Even auto attacks are going to dwarf that most of the time, so not really that reliable. Plus, you'd have to actually have aggro and actually block an attack. Even if you blocked an area of effect attack, this would still only be 1600 damage. I'm really not a fan of the spike damage they try to give tanks in order to help them keep aggro. I feel like they'd be better replaced with just other ways of dealing more damage to gain aggro easier, but what can you do sometimes? All in all, this is probably his worst skill, I would say. Just really not very useful in most scenarios, sadly. Not nearly as useful as the 30% damage reduction on all allies, sadly. Concealed Strength reduces damage taken by 30% when health is at 30% or lower. Now, I could be wrong about this, but if this does work how I think other damage reduction effects work, then this would be an additive effect, meaning that when you are under 30% health, you will have insane amounts of damage reduction to allow yourself to stay alive much easier, so you can maintain yourself and keep the rest of the party healthy in a last-ditch effort. So, I do like this skill a lot. It's really useful when you actually get to that under 30% health threshold, just for giving you a last little bit of tankiness that you might need in order to save a fight. Pretty good effect. And then we have Advanced Lamellar Armor. This increases physical defense and ether defense by 10 percentage points. Now, physical defense and ether defense is just basically damage reduction depending on what type of attack hits you. If you have like 50 physical defense, you will take only 50% of the normal damage from a physical attack, for instance. That's just kind of how it works. So, this is just a really good skill for increasing his overall tankiness. Pretty big fan of this one as well. Really nice skills in general, just for just kind of keeping yourself alive more often by reducing damage at all fronts. So, I do like that. The one thing he's really lacking here is any kind of damage boost. This is the main issue he has with maintaining and keeping aggro at all, or even gaining aggro in the first place. He just has no really strong way to boost his own damage, and that ends up hindering him a lot as a tank character because it's just so difficult for him to ever get aggro in the first place. So I do wish some of his skills could be more offensive in nature to help him out. As far as the non-general 4 skills he has at the bottom of the skill tree, we have Auto Aggro Up. This accrues aggro every second. Unfortunately, this is not very impactful in any kind of fight. Most of the time, the other sources of aggro just outdo this in every aspect just because of how much sheer damage you're dealing, so you're not going to see too many benefits of this, unfortunately. I don't even think the value is that high, sadly. Ether Absorb. When blocking, adds a 50% chance to absorb an ether attack. So this is pretty nice because if you actually end up blocking an attack, you have 15% chance to, I believe, end up healing yourself off of it if Absorb does what I think it does, as it did in previous games. I have never noticed the impact of this in any fight since I'm usually not controlling Nikol, so I don't actually actively pay attention to this, and even in the fight I show off today, it's mostly physical attack, so I don't end up noticing that much, but this could be really nice as far as just keeping him healthy, especially if you end up blocking ether attacks and are able to actually heal that off, so pretty big fan of this one as well, just as a general tank-free ability. Ouroboros Power Awaken. This boosts damage dealt by unity combos by 50%. Once again, I'm not sure if this is just Nikol's damage, if it's the entire team's damage, or if it's just the unity burst, smash, or whatever afterwards. Either way, it does give you a free damage boost on that, so that's pretty nice at the very least. Physical absorb when blocking at 15% chance to absorb a physical attack. Once again, I don't normally notice this, but this could be really useful if you are able to absorb a physical attack just in the same way you could absorb an ether attack and just heal yourself off of something that would normally deal damage to you. Pretty good effect for a tank, especially if you actually do manage to somehow gain aggro. Guard efficiency up increases damage reduction rate when blocking by 15 percentage points. So essentially when you guard an attack, you now take less damage when you guard that attack. So normally guards would be 50% normal damage, and attacks cannot crit you at all. And that's also further reduced by any physical or ether defense you have as well. Blocking just automatically cuts damage in half again. So this would cut another 15 percentage points, meaning that blocks now only do 35% the normal damage to you. So you can really get Nikol into some insane face tank values where he's just basically taking no damage at all with all of the sheer survivability aspects he already has in his kit. And then we have general block rate up and maximum HP up, so just two more kind of general stat increases to help him be an absolutely more effective face tank that just does not die at all. If I were to recommend leveling up certain things on Nikol, I would definitely get his defensive skills as soon as you can, and then everything else is probably not going to be as important overall. Like, his arts aren't really that impactful. The only thing that I would say is the most impactful is his launch art, so he's able to use it more often. Otherwise, his other arts aren't super impressive to me, but they can help his defensive tanking a little bit further, especially his defense up buff. Speaking of which, let's take a look at his arts in more detail. We have Whirlwind. This is 11-second recharge gauge with a power multiplier of 180%, and this boosts aggro generated when using art by 100%. Unfortunately, you're probably never going to gain aggro consistently with Nikol anyway, so you're not going to see too many effective uses of this art. Being short cooldown is nice, and it can lead to some nice fusion effects at the very least. Then we have Steady Assault. This is his most powerful art at a 440% power multiplier with a 19-second cooldown. This will reduce damage taken by 50% while performing art. So this can be nice, especially if you end up actually gaining aggro at all, or if you're about to get hit by a big area of effect attack. You can use this art when that attack is coming and reduce the damage you take even further. I actually like this as an effect a lot. I wish more arts had a type of effect like this, because just a guaranteed way to reduce the amount of damage you are taking as long as you are paying attention, and if you want to save this art for anything else. Pretty good effect for a tank class, I have to admit. I actually like this a lot, so I wish more face tank type classes had arts like this in the base game as well. It's a pretty cool effect at the very least. And then we have Motor Lifter. This is his launch art. This is probably the best art he has because it's a really fast launch attack. And launch is just kind of the key to most things in the system. It leads to your Unity combos, which grant awakening to all of your characters when you're able to execute those Unity combos. It's just combos in general in this game are really important. So having a launch art at all, one of the 2 launch arts in the game, very, very useful. Big fan of this. I really love Motor Lifter. Very good art in general. As far as the Agnes-based arts, we have Blitz Punch. This will boost aggro generated when using art by 100%. Very, very similar to Whirlwind's effect. This time around, it's just a 3 cooldown recharge gauge, so once again, really fast, meaning that you can use the Ouroboros fusion with Whirlwind really often because they both have pretty short cooldowns. Unfortunately, you're probably not likely to get aggro that easily, even when using this, so don't rely on that. Then we have Smart Bomb. This has a power multiplier of 400%, just an area of effect, ether attack, and there's not much to say outside of that. It's just an art to use, kind of. Not too much to say. You're not really doing that much damage with it. It just kind of exists. And then we have Machine Clap. This is a buff to self that grants defense up. So that means that he's going to get defense up and take even less damage from all attacks. So pretty good buff. Now, depending on what art you fusion this with, you can get a number of useful effects. If you team it up with Whirlwind, you can get area of effect and defense up, which is pretty nice because that is the only way to get area of effect defense up to the entire party at all. So pretty good effect as far as entire party support and helping them all take less damage. If you team it up with Steady Assault, you will get Ether Anchor along with defense up, and Ether Anchor means you can nullify 1 reaction effect, so you can ignore 1 break or topple or something from an enemy, which is pretty nice. And if you team it up with Motor Lifter, you are able to gain a debuff barrier, meaning that you'll be able to avoid a debuff from an enemy like Bind or something like that. So pretty good effects regardless of what you do. Always going to be useful to Nikol no matter what, and the area of effect for the team can be pretty nice as well if you decide to go that route. Personally, I am not running that route in this video, but it is something that can be worth considering and can be pretty nice at the very least. And the other 2 fusion effects I am running, just kind of Blitzwind and Smart Assault, aren't really doing anything that impressive, but they just kind of work out for just building up the Ouroboros combo route faster, so that's nice at the very least. Nikol's talent art is Total Destruction. This is a recharge gauge of 4 with a power multiplier of 700%. Not going to be doing that much damage, unfortunately, but once again, it will deal defense bypassing damage, so I guess that's something at the very least. And will reduce damage taken when performing the art by 60%, so you get even more damage reduction when you're using this and an enemy attacks you. Now, Talent Arts were already special in that they would always allow you to live with 1 HP as long as they were active, so it always had some kind of defensive utility, but this offers even more damage reduction on top of that, meaning that you might be able to just kind of not take any damage at all, basically, when you're using this. So, pretty good effect. Might be worth saving for those specific scenarios, especially if you somehow get aggro because everyone else has died and you're the only one left that can possibly have aggro. So, Nikol all around has some pretty decent arts. Unfortunately, they're not the best for actually maintaining aggro, but they have a number of useful effects that can be supported to the party and can help him keep himself alive even easier because of how useful some of the effects and buffs can be. There are multiple different gems you could choose to run. The ones I am choosing to run are Still Protection 4, which is increased block rate by 12 percentage points. If you end up getting 5, it'll be 15 percentage points, meaning you can hit that coveted 69% block rate instead of 66 like I have. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to get that. And then I have Swelling Blessing 5. This will boost power buff effects issued by Self by 35%, meaning his defense up buff will be even more powerful. And any other buff he applies, especially if you have the area of effect one, will be more powerful as well. So pretty nice as far as just increasing his own defensive utility. More than, honestly, a better defensive buff than the other defense buffs on the tree, which is kind of funny. And then finally I have Soothing Breath 4. When helping an incapacitated ally, this provides him 27% more health and also raises healing by 8. So why the heck do I have this? Well, I have a very special accessory on him, which I'll talk about in just a second. As far as any other types of gems you might want to run, if you really want to try to lead into offensive capabilities, you can definitely run Empowered Combo to boost damage dealt by canceling by 45%. That's another independent multiplier to damage. It could help at least, if nothing else. And then Ironclad could give him 700 more max health. That could be something. I don't really think it's that impactful compared to just flat-out damage reduction, but it is something to consider at the very least. I feel like block rate is just almost required if you want to just take advantage of his tanking ability, because that's just really nice damage reduction when it actually ends up working. So Soothing Breath 4, the main reason I have that is because one of my accessories is a Memory Locket. This allows reviving allies even when you're not in a healer role. So because of how just obscenely tanky Nikol is, if I have a Memory Locket on him, that almost assures that I can keep the entire party alive, like almost no matter what. Even if both of my healers die somehow because of like a really powerful area effect attack, Nikol will not die, and Nikol can revive them, and I can put myself back on track. I personally really like this a lot because if, like I said, if I'm fighting a dangerous super boss that has an area of effect attack, I can keep myself alive because Nikol is probably not going to die because of just how absurd his damage reduction ends up being. So even if Nikol can't get aggro himself, he can still contribute meaningfully to the team, and I actually like that a lot myself. Sergeant's Headband increases physical defense by 12 percentage points. Physical defense is the more common type of damage in this game, so just being able to reduce that damage even further by giving myself an even more higher physical defense value. Very, very good. I have 67% here, meaning I only take a third damage from physical attacks at all. And if you block on top of that, I only take about 35% damage from blocks. So I end up taking, what, like 10% damage from those attacks? Really, really impressive, if nothing else. And then I stack even more damage reduction on top of that. Because Nikol has no damage to begin with, I'm going to stack a shield belt and deal 50% less damage, but take 30% less damage. Meaning, hey, I'm just not taking any damage at all at this point. Maybe like double digits or something. It's really impressive just how much you can limit damage when you are using this character, and I think that is the strongest aspect of him. Now, if you really want to try to lean into gaining aggro to begin with, you would obviously not run a shield belt. You want to run like an actual added to damage booster. You might want to run a Sola or Saturni rings to boost his strength as much as possible, or ceramic belt or something. And you just kind of, you would kind of want to lean into more offensive capabilities to try to gain aggro, but once again, I feel like it's going to be more beneficial to do this. The battle manual I have is just guarantee an amazing. It's the same one I have on A. Just guarantee an amazing rating if they finish the chain attack and don't let them activate in the chain attack again. Really beneficial to support the rest of the team, which have more useful effects than the chain attack as far as general attacks and damage that they can deal. So really good heroic chain, but it's not going to help him be the most effective in chain attacks outside of using this heroic chain. But I just like this heroic chain effect a lot. Really useful just to guarantee amazing on earlier rounds when you don't have as much TP. So I'm a big fan myself. And then finally we have Unity skills. Because I'm already going all in on damage reduction, I decided to team Nikol up with Shulk for this. This will reduce damage to allies by 50% and boost health recovery by 15%. Really useful effect because it just reduces all damage taken even further, especially by Nikol himself. And it can help the entire party, and it also boosts how much health you get back as well. So just a lot of useful party support effects in this one new Unity skill. I'm a big fan of it myself because of that. And it helps Nikol just become almost obscenely unkillable. I don't even know if hard mode enemies can even touch him at this point. And I do end up doing a fight on hard mode in this. We also have the Unity skill of Matthew, extends area effective attacks by one that has by 100% and boosts their damage by 200%. This could be a really useful Unity skill depending on if you are in a multi-enemy fight or know you're going to be in a multi-enemy fight, because it'll just boost damage of attacks by a significant amount. It's mostly going to be useful for Matthew himself, though, and not Nikol, since Nikol's damage isn't that impressive, but it's something to consider at the very least. Then we have the Unity skill with A, 20% chance to evade enemy attack. Now, Nikol's a lot more about face tanking and reducing damage than evading attacks. This is more useful for A than Nikol himself, but it does add some defensive utility at the same time, allowing you a 20% chance just to not get hit at all, which can be nice at the very least. The Unity skill with Glimmer will boost damage dealt based on the amount of battle time elapsed. I believe this caps out at 60% after 2 minutes or so that's alright, but it only affects Nikol and Glimmer, and neither of them have any damage anyway. So I don't really think that's really going to be that impactful, so I would not recommend this at all. And then finally, we have boost damage dealt for each active buff with Rex. This is more useful for Rex, obviously, and if you, depending on how many buffs you have in the party, this can get pretty high. And it can help Rex deal more damage. The problem is Rex just has so many powerful Unity skills, this is probably not going to be the best option. So I really do think that Nikol's best Unity skill is just teaming up with Shulk, just to get that really strong party-wide effect. Reduce damage to everyone and boost health recovery is just so obscenely good, just as a general effect, and I really like that a lot. So once again, I talked entirely too long, so let's take a look at how to use Nikol practically. So I'll be fighting Fog, obviously, on hard here, just to kind of showcase just how he just takes no damage. Now, I'm not going to be getting aggro very often. You can see I'm doing not the most impressive damage, especially because I cut my own damage in half already because of the shield belt. But at the very least, I'm able to contribute to reviving teammates. I'm able to help them take less damage by being near them. And that's pretty beneficial as well. If I wanted to have an area of effect defense buff, I could have had that as well. But personally, I'm running the Machine Clap Motor Lifter combination to give myself debuff barrier. This will allow myself not to get binded when it uses its attack that can bind you in place while it's using the area of effect attacks that... Demon Purging Fire, this is what it is. So by having the debuff barrier, I'm able to kind of avoid the bind that can happen with his attacks. You can see my allies are getting binded right now in between these, like, damage circles. It doesn't even matter too much, even if I take some damage from that, because I'm just so tanky anyway. Even if any area of effect does end up hitting me, it doesn't even end up mattering that much. Like, you'll see my health is probably rarely going to go under, like, 8,000 at all. Sometimes it won't even go below, like, my full max health value because of Shulk's Armor Veil ability and just the sheer amount of damage reduction I have, just not even getting rid of that entirely. Like right there, you can see I took, what, like about 300 damage or something from that attack. And every other character basically takes way more from that, which is really funny. So, Demon Purging Fire. I do end up getting bound here, ironically enough, and I took like no damage from that entire sequence even still, which is pretty funny. That's how much the damage reduction I have is, and the Armor Veil from Shulk is coming in clutch to reduce that damage even further, since it's giving me a health barrier. So, as you can see, even on hard here, this is an area of effect attack. I just got healed for like 800, I think that might have been the health absorb. But regardless, you can probably see I didn't even take damage from that entire exchange somehow, even though I did get the knockback. So you can see here, there's just so many ways that Nikol just doesn't take damage at all. And with the memory lock and the ability to revive other characters, it can be like really difficult to even lose these fights, even on hard mode. Like, even if every other character died, you could probably still recover if just Nikol remained alive. Like, if you revived Glimmer first, Glimmer could help you revive other characters faster. Glimmer would have the Devotional Necklace to use healing arts instantly afterwards, and you'd be in a really good situation then. You'd be able to recover. So once again, another area of effect attack. Nikol's still taking no damage. I don't think I've actually managed to get aggro this entire time, so yeah, Nikol's definitely more of a last line of defense support type than an aggro taker tank, unfortunately. There are a lot of things that could have been done to fix Nikol's aggro to make him a little bit better in that front. I really wish he had like a guaranteed taunt art. Like, I don't know why they removed that mechanic since Torna, but even still, there are a lot of things you can do to just make Nikol benefit the team. Like, another area of effect attack, it ends up missing him flat out that time, so I'm just getting lucky at this point as well, just to show off the sheer defensive utility here. Now, you'll see the health in the corner hasn't really changed much. At this point, I'm just waiting for that all-important break, so I can just kind of go in on the chain attack itself. Now, if you want to do more damage outside of chain attacks, controlling Nikol is not the wave, so that's kind of why the health bar is tricking down so slow, because the AI isn't the greatest at dealing very consistent damage. This would be a really long fight if I didn't have chain attack available to me, unfortunately. So, I finally took a little bit of damage there, but now I'm back to full health again instantly. So there was the talent art there as well, if you wanted to see that. Matthew ends up getting one shot from the Ultra Play Bite. And a lot of this fight is just about using my arts and Just kind of keeping myself topped off with the defense buff and everything like that. I end up getting hit there, and it still does basically nothing compared to how much damage it does to everyone else. So I'm back. I'm at full health still, while Matthew and Glimmer are kind of low. So it's really funny to just see the discrepancy here between just how much damage I'm taking and how much everyone else is taking. I really like this setup, like I said. It's just really good for just kind of ensuring that you can always win fights, even if characters are constantly dying. Just because Nikol himself is just never going to be in that much danger, no matter what. Which is nice. Like, even when I'm actually getting hit by these attacks, I'm not taking damage, even when it's dealing massive amounts to other characters. And there we finally get the break. I'm not going to show off the full chain attack here, because I think you know how it goes at this point, and I don't really have it set up to where Nikol's going to be doing anything that meaningful. But I will showcase the, just kind of the order here and how he can contribute to getting an amazing round 1 just by being the last character to attack in a turn. And then, yeah, that should be good. So you can basically use any 3 characters you want if you don't go over the cap. I personally just end up using 2 here because I don't really need the TP from any other character here, so I just use Rex and Glimmer here. And then I can just finish off with Nikol after that to get the guaranteed amazing no matter what. Now, Nikol can also guarantee the launch in the chain attack itself by doing this. So I'll have launch for every subsequent round. And you probably know how this goes at this point. Unfortunately, I end up not getting the full amount of orders because of some wacky RNG, so I don't get the actual kill here with the end of the chain attack. So I have to use a few more arts before he finally goes down here, but doesn't end up mattering, still goes down easily either way, and end the fight on hard mode without too many issues. So yeah, hard mode obviously not too bad. If you were to do like the slow and steadies on hard, you could definitely do it with this setup, even if it would take you a lot longer. I'm a big fan of this build on Nikol. I think it works really well for being tanky, keeping himself alive, and helping the rest of the party in meaningful ways as well, even if he cannot maintain aggro as easily. So just kind of finding viable alternatives to using some of the tank classes can be some of the best ways to take advantage of them. So big fan of this. I think he still contributes meaningfully to the party, and the future redeemed party is honestly one of the strongest parties of all time, just with how you can set them up and take advantage of their strengths, even if Rex is mostly the damage carry here. Still a really good party in general. So I think that's going to cover it for this. Hope you learned something from watching this guide, and if you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. There are a couple other things I do want to make on Future Connected, and I've been thinking about making, and we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. So please look forward to those guides in the future as well. I do want to cover a few things in the base game as well, so I'm not completely done with the content yet. So please look forward to all of that in the future. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully I will see you back here soon.